So today we're going to be talking about building a vintage wardrobe on a budget. Pretty much everybody is going to be on some kind of a budget for when they are trying to live life. You only have so much money. So I'm going to kind of talk about some ways to start a vintage wardrobe if you don't have a ton of cash flow. Because, like everything, the nice things are really expensive. Okay, so the first thing that you are going to want to do before you start building your vintage wardrobe is research, okay? You need to be able to have these tools. One, it's going to really help you shopping when you are looking either online or in person for shopping to know what kind of shapes and colors and prints are the ones from the period you're looking to build your wardrobe in. And also for when you're looking online, because not everybody who sells vintage online knows what they're talking about. So it's really important as a consumer to research so you can spot things, and sometimes you can find things that people don't know what they are and get a really good deal on them. So Pinterest is a great source for research. There's lots of wonderful things on Pinterest you can find. Unfortunately though, again, not everybody on Pinterest knows what they're talking about. So I'm going to show you some of the books that I have that have been super helpful in researching vintage clothing. The first one is here. These are the everyday fashions of the 40s or whatever decade is pictured in Sears catalog. And I got these off of Amazon. And what happens is they have reprinted selected pages from the Sears catalog for the decade, and they're listed in chronological order and they are dated, which is awesome, so you can kind of get an idea of what might have been popular at the beginning of the decade versus the end of the decade. Unfortunately, the pictures are in black and white, so that does not help as far as colors, but a lot of the pages do include the description about the piece, and that can kind of give you some information. What colors was it available? Was it available in black and blue and green or red, or those kind of things that can help you even though they're black and white. And so for that, I have the 40s and the 50s and the 30s and the 19-teens, and I actually found a similar book from the Montgomery Ward for the 20s at a used bookstore. I haven't really looked around to see if this one is available online because I did already have the other decades from the Sears catalogs. This one does have a larger percentage of menswear and children's wear, which is not something that I'm particularly interested in, but it does have some color pages on the inside. Okay, so this is the Montgomery Ward Fashions of the 20s. Okay, and you can also find other books. I just like these because they weren't particularly expensive and they're kind of thin and that they are dated, which is super helpful. Okay, so once you kind of know what sorts of things to look for, the next thing that's going to be really important before you do any shopping is to have a plan for your wardrobe. Now, most of the people who are getting into vintage, when you get started, you don't really have a plan. You're like, ooh, look at all the pretty things and I'm so excited, and you just go shopping and buy all this stuff. But if you can, and if you can have a plan, that's going to help you shop smarter and better, and it's going to help you get your wardrobe faster and less expensively. I'm going to do another series of videos, maybe one video, maybe a couple of videos, I haven't decided yet, about some tips for planning a vintage wardrobe and some kind of the key pieces that I would pick for a starter wardrobe to help you guys out. But definitely having a plan is helpful. There are tons and tons and tons of modern wardrobe plan lists, charts, things you can find on the internet. You would have to do a little bit of conversion to kind of get it to a vintage wardrobe, but it'll give you some ideas of things to have and what to wear. Another thing that will be important for your plan is to focus on basics and separates in your wardrobe. It's really easy to fall in love with those novelty print dresses, but you really can only get one outfit out of a novelty print dress unless you get really creative. If you focus on separates and basics, you can really change things up, wear a top with a different bottom, and get a whole new look. You're also going to want to try and stick within a coordinating color palette. Again, so you can have that kind of mixability to switch things up. Now, this doesn't have to be like your set color palette forever. You can just think of it for right now, for the season, at the beginning, and you can add it and change later, but especially when you're starting, if you can get kind of a more cohesive color palette, that'll help you be able to make your wardrobe better. You know, if you have a black top and a brown skirt, those probably aren't going to look too good together. But to keep that in mind, a color palette, or, you know, say if you already have a red blouse, to look for things that are going to go with that red blouse that you might already have in your closet. The next thing to help with your vintage wardrobe on a budget is to hit the thrift stores and to look for classic pieces, right? Actual vintage pieces, the price on these are going up and up and up and up and up, especially for the 1940s and anything kind of fun and exciting from the 50s. So if you look for classic pieces versus actual vintage pieces, not only are you going to save money, but you're probably going to find a piece that is going to be in newer condition, and also you don't have to worry about ruining it like you would with an actual vintage piece. So things like pencil skirts, button-up blouses, those kind of things that never go out of style, you can find. And also, if you're unaware of this, the vintage style has been popular in other decades. So the 70s saw a recurrence of some kind of the 30s, so you find a lot of 70s does 30s, and in the 80s you had the 80s does 40s and 80s does 50s. So if you find pieces that are newer, they're going to be cheaper, more easy to find, and you can use that to kind of build your wardrobe, especially at the beginning. When you're budgeting your wardrobe, it is going to be important not only to consider the cost of a particular piece that you're purchasing, but the cost per wear of that piece. So what that means is if you're going to buy like a drop dead gorgeous 50s prom gown, okay, that's going to cost you $300, and you don't really get invited to any kind of fancy events, that's probably not going to be a smart decision to make. But if you invest in, say, a really nice winter coat or a suit that you're going to be able to wear again and again and again, that's going to bring the cost per wear way down, even though the initial cost is still the same. And those are going to be the key pieces that you're going to want to save up and invest in, okay? Especially if you live somewhere that has a really long or cold winter coat is going to be key to your wardrobe. So definitely make sure that that's something that you're saving up for and being willing to invest in a really nice one, because you're going to wear it every day all winter. Another big thing that's going to help you in building your vintage wardrobe is to learn how to sew, at least a little bit, to keep up with the mending. Oftentimes, pieces will need a new button or a new zipper, or a seam will have popped that will need to be sewn up, and being able to do those little fixes means that you can purchase those pieces and possibly get them for a little bit better of a deal because they're not in mint condition, and fix them up yourself. And also, after you purchase vintage pieces, a lot of them will need repairs and upkeep just because these things are 60, 70 years old that you're wearing, and they don't always last forever. In addition, if you are willing to invest the time and the energy to learn how to make your own garments, that's another place where you can save because you're not then paying in for the labor part of sewing your own garments. So I make a lot of my own clothes, which has allowed me to have a much bigger wardrobe than if I was purchasing solely vintage clothes. And you know, there's lots of easy things that you can start out with that you can do, you know, especially very basic skirts that are really great, that can really help you beef up your wardrobe. Okay, and the last tip I'm going to have is to work on your hair and makeup skills, because those are going to really help with the overall vintage vibe of your look. And so if you have really a nice pin curled hair and a great vintage makeup with a red lip, and you're wearing some of those more classic or maybe 80s does or 70s does pieces, that's going to really help you convey that vintage style that you're looking for without having to have the clothes do all the work. And so that's definitely a place, especially at the beginning. It's usually a lot cheaper to invest in some bobby pins so you can pin curl your hair and a tube of red lipstick. And besides, those just make you feel fabulous anyways. Okay, so those are all of my tips for getting started building a vintage wardrobe on a budget.